Welcome everybody. What a great day. We'd say a great Navy day. Beautiful sunshine. Global warming's here. It's kind of great. So welcome to the celebration of Kat Berry. It's about a celebration. There is no sadness today. Even though I'm still grieving, that's just the way it's going to be for me. So I appreciate everybody coming. And we're going to do food by numbers, or tables by numbers. So we're going to eat, and then after you kind of, toward the end, if we're about finished, then I'll open my mouth again and you're going to hear a story. We're all here because we know Kat Berry. This is her day. It's not mine, it's hers. So, her name was Kathleen Gotthardt Berry. The Berry came later, and I'll talk about that. Kathleen was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a great state of lots of lakes, on August the 5th, 1947. And she peacefully transitioned to heaven on November the 10th, 2022. Please remember this. Birth and death are endpoints, the beginning and the end. It's all about the middle that counts. Don't forget that. So let's talk, what about Kat's middle? Let's talk about that. So she grew up in Milwaukee. Sorry, I'm still grieving a little bit. There may be a few tears here. It's okay, don't feel sad. I'm still working through that. I'm getting better. Anyway, she grew up in Milwaukee in Sussex, Wisconsin. It's a small town outside of Milwaukee. She got strong values from her Austrian-American parents who were naturalized. In 1969, she graduated magna cum laude from the University of Wisconsin with a Bachelor of Education in elementary education, which prepared her for her 40-plus year-long teaching career. She loved teaching kids. She loved teaching the young kids. After teaching in Wisconsin for a year, she decided she wanted to see the world, and took a Department of Defense dependent school teaching job in the Philippines. Is that different from Wisconsin? Oh yeah. Where she taught military service personnel children. While in the Philippines, she enjoyed hiking, traveling, as well as scuba.
When was this, George? Yeah, what years were that?
But this is in 72.
Okay. Oh my gosh, who was there when we were there?
She taught at Clark Air Base.
I went to that before.
And
Wicklow Elementary School.
Maybe she was your teacher.
Wordsmith.
I don't know. I was.
The elementary school that was on the base.
We were in different worlds back then. We were both in the tropics. While she was, I didn't know her and she didn't know me yet. She was in the Philippines. I was in Panama, South America. So opposite worlds, tropics, but we both got warm.
Chaplain at Clark Air Force Base, but I think that was way before she was there.
Huh? This is around 72. Okay.
Yeah, it might.
So one has to admit, this is a 20-year-old. She was a pretty adventuresome young lady. Kathleen later transitioned to Germany to begin a long Department of Defense school teaching career at the many government military bases. During the summer break, she joined traveling and touring Italy, France, India, Nepal, Greece, Turkey, and Bali, just to name a few. Jeez, it's got me beat. One summer, this is important, one summer in 1979, A DODDS teacher friend who taught kids in Laude, Spain, asked that she would come and house sit while they were traveling. You see, if you didn't have anybody in your house, the local Spanish folks would rob the house. So you did have somebody in the house. So she accepted the offer of a house, a car, and then we ran some other teachers. Very comfortable environment. And they lived just outside a U.S. Spanish naval base in Laude, Spain. The local teachers invited her one evening, one Friday, to join them at the Navy Officers Club for drinks and dinner. Little did Kathleen know that this event would be an important turning point in her life. Well, at the club, she noticed a young Navy officer, and he noticed her too. Sorry, I gotta get this right. After 40 plus years, it's still important. Anyway, she noticed this young Navy officer, and he noticed her too. Their eyes met, and shazam! It was love at first sight between Kathleen Gotthardt and Lieutenant George Berry. It's like, remember the modems? This is how it was for me. Remember the old modem? Our eyes were just doing that together. It's kind of like... we walked out of the club together that night.
That's so sweet.
Details beyond that are not to be recorded.
Did
Well,
you have a mustache back then, George?
not that time, no.
No, because you in the picture over there, you had one.
Well, I've had mustaches and beards in the Navy, but not, you know, it's whatever the Navy will let you do and what I want and later what she wanted. We all guys know that. So the tough news came while we were in Laude, Spain. Kathleen told me that our love would need to survive a long-distance relationship as she was heading back to Wisconsin to obtain a master's in reading. Kathleen and I worked hard to keep our romance alive. We visited each other's families in the U.S. in Christmas in 1979. I visited her family. She visited my family in Lexington. So we got together. In 1981, Kathleen received her degree. Actually, you'll see a picture of her. Her mother received the degree for her because she had to go to Germany. So that was an interesting point that her mother received her degree. Very, very nice to honor your mother that way. So later in 1981, Kathleen and I made separate trips to visit each other's location in Germany and Spain to keep our love fire going, which was still very strong after the separation of time and space. Later that year, I did my part. I convinced the Navy to transfer me to U.S. European Command in Stuttgart. There was only one job. It turns out my old boss had it, and we made a deal with the military detailers to send me there. So she was in Germany. I was going to Germany. Not there yet, going to Germany. Well, that was a mini miracle, and I thank the Lord for helping that because only He could have made that happen, not me. Prior to being sent to Germany, the Navy sent me to Fort Belvoir for mapping and targeting training. Drop the nuclear. Lucky me, Kathleen came to visit me at Fort Belvoir. I was in school. You know how hard it is when your girlfriend's visiting and you're trying to study? Yeah, there's the studying gave. Anyway, so she came to visit and I said, you know, it's at that time we get an engagement ring. So we went to, King's Jewelry down in Arlington. If everybody been down to Arlington, you know, it's a classy jewelry store. And we went shopping for an engagement ring. We found one. Nice, small marquee, fit within our budget. And that afternoon, first thing, I made her carry the engagement ring all afternoon. I didn't just give it to her at the jeweler. I was wanting the right spot. So I discovered the right place to put that ring on her finger. Where was that place? None other than the Metro bus stop on Route 1. A place you'll never, ever forget. Right across from the pig barbecue place, I think it was.
Did you get down on her knees?
Huh?
Did you get down on
Oh, you
her
betcha I did, Laura.
knees? I never knew.
You know, there's more you don't know. It's coming.
Maybe better.
Oh, sorry, interrupt. Okay, I forgot to do something, and I'm going to take a break here a second. Get my eyes better. I want to introduce this pretty lady over here is my sister, Laura. And this is her husband, Lynn. This is my younger brother, Kendall. And over here is my number one daughter, Skye. God, she's good looking, you know. And that's her husband, Jerome. And my number two granddaughter, Ariana. Number one couldn't make it. She had a tummy problem, right? Yep. Anyway, and there are other people I'm going to recognize too. I'll get around to that. I'll break again. All right, so we lived in Germany as one. Then we got married. You know all about that. We got married in 1972.
Wait.
At the 1982. I'm sorry, I got to read this right. Thank you. I got help here. So we got married at the Rat House. What's the Rat House? That's the Stuttgart Vian Justice of the Peace. It's called the Rat House. Or Rat House, I think is the right name. But we like to call it the Rat House. I did anyway. Kathleen was frequently called Kathy, you know. And later, she embraced my nickname for her. Because we had cats, she became the big cat. So that's how she got her name. I recommended it to her, and she liked it. So when we lived in Germany, Kat taught many dependent kids in UCOM Patch Barracks, which is the National Command there in Europe. She also took care of my daughter, Skye, and traveled extensively with me throughout Europe. Oh, we went all over. In Europe, Kat taught me how to ski. And I'm pretty tall and I fall hard. And I'm a spaz. But I taught her how to explore caves. So we all got each other into different things. And I don't know if there's a caving picture of us or skiing picture, but we shared. In 1984, we were both transferred from Germany to Japan. I was deployed many days on the aircraft carrier USS Midway. Some of you see my ball cap. Homeported in Yokosuka, Japan. This meant Kat, I was gone a lot. This meant Kat had to manage the home front as well as my daughter. Kat stayed busy teaching military kids at Sullivan Elementary School, but also directed an adult education program for the military personnel. And in her spare time, she became a Yokosuka base taxi driver. She was definitely the Energizer bunny. There are many times when Kat joined me on the Midway port calls, like Hong Kong, Korea, Thailand, which turned out to be Kat's spending money to save money shopping adventures. I mean, it's a good deal. You got to spend the money. In 1986, we moved for the first time to the USA. I was stationed at the Pentagon and Naval Research Lab, while Kat taught at Fairfax County and Prince William County schools. In 1992, after 10 years of marriage, this is something we'd agreed to because we had a wedding at the Rat House, and nobody came but none of the family came. We agreed after 7 years, get by the 7-year itch, in 10 years, we were going to have a real church wedding. We did it at the Fort Belvoir Chapel. There are stories I can tell you about that. She translated in English what the German vows that I had agreed to. Remember, I didn't speak very much German and I didn't know what I was signing up to, but she read them there. Oh yeah, 10 years, you know, oh yeah, these are the rules. And then I surprised her with a new engagement ring, which I'd held for 2 years in my underwear drawer. And she never she never found it because they had the photographer there seeing if she noticed that if it was like, so this is a clean underwear, okay, come on. Anyway, she never found it, and because you could see from the picture how wowed she was. So we wowed each other at our second wedding. So it was good where family members could attend. In 1996, while teaching at Prince William Schools, Kat obtained an English as a second language certification for George Mason University. It's called ESOL. And she really enjoyed ESOL, teaching these young kids of coming from foreign countries English. It was very rewarding to her. She retired teaching in 2007. On one summer, she took a part-time job working with a government organization called the NRO. That's called the National Reconnaissance Office. That's the place that makes spy satellites, and one of those three-letter spooky organizations in the DC area. Well, to her surprise, she was shocked to learn that I too worked for the NRO. For all these years, she thought I'd told her I worked at Naval Research Lab. I didn't. I was undercover. You know, I can talk about it now. Times have changed. But everybody knew I worked at Naval Research Lab. But very few knew I worked at the NRO, working technology for spy satellites. Well, I can say we did have some secrets in our marriage. And my former security officer is here to make sure I don't get in trouble. Thank you, Michael Novak, for coming. She loved you. So let me go back in time. I'm almost done, guys. I'm going to go back in time. In the late 80s, and after our Japanese tour, while in the U.S., I introduced Kat to the beauty of the Outer Banks, a place I visited many times as a kid back in the 50s, with my brother and sister, I should say. Back then, there were wooden bridges. There were ferry boats. It was an experience, putting up a 500-pound canvas tent back then with wooden poles. So I told Kat, hey, the OBX is similar to your Wisconsin lakes, but much bigger. We have the Atlantic Ocean. So both of us made multiple visits and fell in love with the beauty of the Outer Banks together. We bought our first OBX property in the mid-'80s, later became Doonesbury, which is transitioned to a new owner. Kat continued to teach and manage the home front for the next 18 years, while I worked as a contractor, doing that spooky stuff I can't talk about. Anyway, it's all for the good of the country. We both saved funds from our jobs. I also was a part-time real estate agent. At that time, the number one part-time real estate agent for Jobin Realty in Springfield area. I made a lot of money that way, but I took that money and reinvested in the Outer Banks. We reinvested in the Outer Banks. We invested it in our beach home business that we created together. So we made many trips managing and improving and cleaning our rental properties. One year we made 23 trips from Northern Virginia, 23, from Virginia to the Outer Banks. That's like half of the weeks in a year. It took great teamwork, which we had. We cleaned the houses together. You know, we did it. We didn't have a cleaning crew, but us. And 2012 and 13 were sad. They were very tough years for Kat. She had to undergo multiple surgeries on her back, which fused 95% of her backbone and neck. She lost part of her hand control. If you ever noticed, she didn't have full control of her hand. So it wasn't perfect, but if she hadn't have done these surgeries, she would have been paralyzed. It was a tough decision we made together. So the surgeries were hard on her, but she was determined not to let that slow her down. So we pressed on with our dream. We both wanted the Outer Banks to be our forever home. So in 1999, we bought our sound front lot in the Southern Shores. That was an adventure too, just finding a property on the sound. In 2014, our home was started by Olin Finch. Then in 2015, when I finished my contracting work for the CIA, I said that, we moved into our new home on North Dogwood. We both continue enjoying traveling places like Chile. You'll see some pictures over there. Dominican Republic, Germany, Mexico. While at home, Kat was an animal lover. We had our cats, but she loved animals. She focused on our 2 cats, but she also collected numerous plants and was a contributor to the Little Plant Library in Southern Shores. She was an organized plant hoarder. We had probably 100 plants, I guess, in the house somewhere. Little plants. She liked baby plants. She would take them from the plant library and grow them up. And that was, she had a good dream thumb. So I want to thank some of the ladies who helped with that, because we had plants. And I know my wife would know that I couldn't keep them all. They'd probably die, and she wouldn't want that. So I got a hold of some great lady friends, and they reached out to other lady friends, and we had an army of ladies come over and rescue the plants. They did trust me with about 7, but Dixie Kirby was one of those ringleaders. Rosemary Gordon, one of those ringleaders. And you were also engaged in that. Yeah, Deidre was in there. There were so many. It was a swarm of ladies. More than I can handle. Anyway, they came over and rescued the plants, and they all found homes. And I've seen pictures from people what the plants look like now, and they're healthier and better, and it's all good. So for me, I'm good with the plastic plants. I'm gonna work on that. Have to dust them, I guess. I need to hire a maid. So Kat wants to thank you all, and all the ladies who helped her rescue her plants. And I want to thank Kat for the cats, because if I didn't have the cats, it would be pretty boring. And the next best thing is some of you have come over. There are a lot of you have, to my house. And I want to thank you all, because that has helped me just to talk about things. Some of you have lost your loved one, and we have a lot to talk about. Some just want to kind of tell me what's going on. I thank you all. And if you want to come by and visit, then please do. Okay. So, on Kat's behalf, she would encourage you to make a donation. Today, tomorrow, the next day. On your table and on your little thing right here. It's a thing called Feline Hope. They're an animal rescue group in Kitty Hawk that we've contributed over the years, and they do great things for taking care of feral cats, and they help really well. So if you feel like you want to honor Kat, we don't need flowers, make a donation to Feline Hope. Take the card home, think about it, read about it, and Kat would appreciate that. So that kind of concludes my words. Sorry, I had big print here. That concludes my words. And so if there's anybody, and there's no pressure, if anybody wants to say anything, just stand up. I'm going to come, I got the microphone, so I'm going to come close to you. So we want to capture that. So the video is going to be produced into a clip that I'll send out within a week, I hope, to everybody, those who couldn't make it and those who could. Because some people just couldn't make it. There's health issues, there's travel issues, and I wanted to let them hear the presentation. And I want to thank everybody for coming and their time. So, anybody want to say anything? Come on, don't be shy. You want to hear more of me? No. None?
Well, I'd like to say that.
I'm going to lip.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
No, the microphone can't.
Kat used to ask me when they took off to the mountain cabin or wherever they were going to take care of her plants and the cats, right? And so I'll never forget. I'll never forget her voice. Hi, boy. And then the detailed instructions followed.
Like with any wife.
Holy smokes! This plant she always had this detailed layout. They were only going to be gone for like 3 or 4 days, but and the cats and it's like, okay, all right, cat, I got it.
Yes, Bud worked for my wife.
Yeah.
And she said, she wanted me to do something with the plants. I said, and he said, it's okay, I'll get Bud to do it. So, anybody else want to add anything? Oh, come on over here, Mr.
something that-
This is Ron Nelson.
Something that always reminds me a lot about Kat and you is that much of our lives revolve around food. All right, George, as we all know, is a great cook and whatever, but at the same time, Kat was also a wonderful cook, and some of the best meals I've ever had were George would cook up something great, and Kat would have this great little side dish to go along with it, and you could just tell by the way they were putting things together what a great partnership you guys really had together. And cooking does that. And the other thing I remember about Kat, when I first started making pizzas myself, she was a little bit skeptical about that at first because pizza's pizza, whatever. But as time went on, she was my fiercest supporter of pizza. And I cannot recall a day she ever missed an event like that.
Right.
And it was just a lot of fun to have her there and talk with her there and
Thank
just
you.
kind of have a great time.
It's great.
Because she was a wonderful, wonderful lady and had a wonderful way of it was probably that Midwestern upbringing, which of course where I'm from as well. So, so thank you, George.
Thank you. Well, you know, some of you may have guessed I'm an extrovert. Slightly. My wife, classic introvert. We go to a party, and, you know, we're doing our own thing, and at the end of the party, I said, hey, did you have a good time? She said, yeah, I had a great time. I said, really? I said, yeah, I sat by this guy. He didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. It was great. I said, okay, I'm glad you had a good time. Okay. But there's lots of stories. You know, when you're married over 40 years, there's a lot of stories. Yes?
I'm going to say something.
Oh, good. Well, come on over here. I got the microphone.
I have to say
Uh-oh.
that we didn't know Kat very long because we just started getting involved in the club not even quite a year ago.
That's the boat club.
The boat club, yes, the boat club. And we were fortunate when we were turning over, George was turning over to the GAM and Kat was turning over her clothing to my husband. They invited us over to dinner. And you didn't mention this at all, but Kat gave me a tour of the house. And she has an extensive collection of, it's obies, right?
Yes.
And I was just blown away. Their frog is just lined with boxes and boxes of all these beautiful Japanese obies. And she showed me all the ones and things like that. And I was extremely impressed.
Well, she hoarded plants and she hoarded obies. She was organized, though. You can see it's all in line and with numbers, organized order.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, a Japanese woman would wear a kimono. And around the kimono, around the waist, is a very large band. That is called the obi. And there are about 6 different classifications of obies. Okay, so they get online and who's the bidder on them? She said, I want that one, make it happen. So I would make it happen.
Well, they're all silk, right?
There are a few that are not, but 99% of them are silk. And they're gorgeous colors. They make table runners. They go over chests. You can use it as a wall hanger. I'm going to have to figure out what we're going to do with them.
I
for
was going to
collection.
ask you, have you figured out yet what you're going to do
I'm
with them?
thinking. I don't have an answer yet, but, you know.
But we had a lovely meal and got to see their house, and it was really fun. So we
Right.
enjoyed that very much. It was a way of getting to know both you and Kat better.
Well, on the house plans came back one day, and my wife said, how come there's a 3-car garage? We didn't have that. It was a 2-car. And I said, honey, you have the sunroom, which is the plant room. This is my beer and wine cave. She said, okay. She liked wine. So we worked together. The wine and beer here, we're not much of the beer, but the wine and Kat and I worked on that together. It's a teamwork. And I hope, does anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm going to get down.
Okay, go. Oh, she was a great sous chef also. So my wife had some issues with her hand because of surgery, but she was great helping me out cook things. And I could always, here, chop this, chop that. You know, she was kind of like 3 bags full, came out perfect every time. And all my recipes that I made or used, they go back to how well she helped me providing cooking. So, anybody want to? All right, well.
I'll say a few things, George.
Oh, okay, Rosemary. Well, thank you. Come on over, dear.
So I didn't know Kat for that long. I knew George first. We worked together in the latter part of his career. We can't talk about.
We were what we call in the government world or contracting world as competimates. A competimmate is 2 people, or usually, who work together as a team from different companies and put something together for the customer. And that's the mate part. The competitor part is like, we duke it out.
Yeah, we duked it out.
She was in one company and I was
But
at
there
another.
was at least one time where we duked it out and he won for good reasons.
Thank you.
But then later on, you know, he saw the light that my team could bring, and we actually
Why, brought your team
brought
on?
onto the team after the fact. So the government was very happy as a result.
Well, in the government contracting world, you got the government wants certain companies sometimes. You know, even though I may have won, they wanted her company, and I got that message, and I reached out, and so today she's still a great friend. And, you know, she's gone through the grieving process, too. She's lost her husband.
Yeah, I lost my husband a year ago.
So,
And I lost my mom
so,
a year ago today. And the story behind that is she was 102, lived in her own home
Wow.
until January 15th, passed away February 24th.
Wow.
So, good news story. She had a really good long life, and I was blessed to have her so long.
she's got some good genes here.
Today is a monument to my mom as well. But that said, this is Kat's Day.
It is.
I didn't really meet Kat until I met up with George down here on the Outer Banks. So we had been talking on the phone as competimates for a number of years. And one day we just started to talk about what we did, you know, in our spare time, and realized that we both had homes down here. So we got together a few times when we were still working, but it wasn't until after I retired that I think we started to get together more, and I visited them in their home. And Kat was very gracious to give me a tour of the home. You know, I saw the OBs, I saw several of their rooms where they have collectibles from all the places that they visited throughout the world.
Dustals.
It's just extensive.
It's a museum. It's a museum. Okay.
I wouldn't call it a museum, but there are just some beautiful pieces that you could just fall in love with by walking through the house. And that's a testament to both of you, really, for collecting.
With that, when both of us were traveling and going different places, I said we didn't know each other until 1979. So she had been all around the world and traveling. She picked this treasures up here, treasures over there. I picked treasures over here, you know. When we finally got together, we didn't know what stuff we had. We unpacked everything, and she says, well, be careful with that. I said, no, that's mine. No, that's mine. And turns out, many items we collected the same thing. So it's meant to be. A lucky guy. And everybody who knew her was lucky too.
Yeah. So I didn't know her for very long. I did have the pleasure of having dinner with them a few times. They came to our house several times.
Mm-hmm.
The one time they came to my house, my husband was still alive. And it was interesting. George wanted figs from my fig tree. I have a very large fig tree on the Sound, probably about 30 years old. And he said to me one year, can I get some of your figs? I said, sure, if you'll come help me pick them. So
she held the ladder.
Sunday,
I did the picking.
One Sunday we planned a dinner, and he came over and helped me pick figs. Kat and my husband sat out at the pool area, which was an area where they didn't have to walk down too many steps, because my husband was having mobility issues as well. So Kat and my husband got to know each other well. George and
we went back to work, you know, working together. Got some figs.
We did.
I brought them home, cleaned them up, did what I needed to do to them.
And we
This
have,
this is a fig wine. I'll open it if somebody wants to try it. It's not sweet.
it's like a dry Chardonnay, I would say that.
It's a really dry Chardonnay.
It is very
It's
good.
and it
I
looks.
will say you have to be careful. It's 20% alcohol. Leave it to George to ferment in such a way
I'm not sure.
that you get a
Anybody in the
real-
ABC here, please don't start.
you get a real impact from it. But it is very good tasting wine. I was very, very surprised.
And the
Not that I-
color is spectacular. It's like a rosé color.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But on the few occasions that I had the pleasure of having time with George and Kat at their house, what I wanted to say is Kat was, to me, very inquisitive. She would ask the most interesting questions because I'm an extrovert, but I'm kind of on that line. And she really brought out a lot of good subjects that we would just have wonderful discussions about. And, we had to put George aside because George, sometimes it's hard to get a word in edgewise, but
really,
Kat and I have wonderful conversations, and that's one thing I will always treasure from Kat, even though I didn't know her as long as I've known George. But
well,
we had wonderful
I
conversations.
picked a good one, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything? Well, come on over, sis.
Very briefly.
She looks pretty good for being older than me,
Yeah, by 4 years.
I called her my bony ass sister. She didn't like that, but
The S
She's
is
looking
still
good.
there. It's just down lower.
anyway. So yes,
Well, first of all, you two made a great team, and I celebrate
thank you.
that togetherness, and I know you miss her. The other thing is, I have a car, and I, for the first time in my life, got a vanity plate when I got this Volvo. And to this day, only one person has looked at my clever plate and guessed what it meant, and that was Kat. Only one person, and she did it instantly. She just looked at it. And it's these letters and numbers. I, 1, 2, B, Y, Y. Think about it.
I want to be wise.
Yes. Now there are two. Now
Another
there are two.
another smart lady.
You must have gotten along very well with Kat.
Well, a lot of the ladies here that worked in the boat club knew her, and again, Kat was an introvert, and when she'd sit down at the check-in table, you couldn't help but talk to people, and she was out selling shirts and stuff like that. I think it's one of the best things I did for her, except she said, "You made me do it." I said, "I did, but I wanted to get her out, and she worked well to transition stuff over to Bill, but I think it really helped her be more open. My daughter, did you want to say something? You don't have to. You can sit down. Isn't she a good-looking daughter? Boy, am I lucky. Come on over to your dad here,
So, Kat's been involved in my life. She started off really, really early. We were kind of opposite in a lot of ways, but we had to slowly grow our love for each other. She has taught me a lot of values that I have to this day. A very strong worker, just got to be determined, getting through things, getting up here to be able to talk to you. I consider myself to be an extrovert, but in moments like this, I get a little bit shy. Public speaking is not my favorite thing. But I want to be here for my dad, and I want to be here for his wife, my stepmother, Kat. They were an amazing team, and towards the end of things, we have been able to reconnect and get through a lot of things together. And I think our relationship was starting to come to a strong point where I wish I could have had it my whole life, but just sometimes things grow slowly.
Yeah.
We have a very strong passion for animals. I mean, I work in the animal field. I give as much as I can to the animal field. So whatever you're able to give towards animals, I strongly support too. You'll probably be seeing my face more often around here because I want to make sure that my dad has someone here by his side. And I'm
wow.
so wonderful that you guys are here to help him through all this. But please, please come visit him. Please don't leave him alone. So I love you.
Hey. Boy, I didn't expect that. That's pretty good. Sorry, choking me up again. Thank you. Thank you all. No, it's not me. I'm just the messenger for her. So I was a lucky guy. Sorry.